And now, here's Dr. Mike.
Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me today for the live show as we get started today. And by the way, we've got a fantastic guest lined up. It's going to tell us what's going on with the truck convoy. I know that's a question a lot of folks are asking today. What's happening with that? Well, she was, can I say, embedded with them for a while, and we've got some fantastic footage that we're going to show. But I want to encourage you folks to go out. I think you can see that. Go out to theflameusa.com, theflameusa.com, and subscribe to the paper. You're going to find this paper full of information that you're not going to get anywhere else. You're certainly not going to get it on the mainstream media. I can tell you that. This we are like this. Here's a good article. Blind Justice in Kenosha. I don't know if you can see that or not. Effective legal action against workplace vaccine mandates. That's the kind of information you're going to find in this. Theflameusa.com. Theflameusa.com. Go out and subscribe. Support them as they get these papers distributed all over America. We are thankful for organizations and people such as that. So today I'm welcoming to the show Stacey Stine. She's the founder and president of Crazy Cat Drones. She's an Air Force vet and a former search and rescue dog trainer. Stacey, thank you for taking the time to join me today.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's my privilege to be here.
Well, we've got a couple of snippets, a couple of segments of footage that you've done that we wanted to show before we get into our conversation. This one, and Kathy, let's do the one where the singing first, because I love that. Here's a group of truckers, really the salt of the earth, right, Stacey?
Absolutely.
And this spontaneously broke out in singing a hymn. Let's look at this first. Okay, I'm not sure if that volume came through, if you could hear the singing there or not. Did you hear it, Stacey?
Nope, there was no sound.
Okay, Kathy's going to try it again.
Okay.
Okay, Cheryl says no. She didn't hear any singing. Okay. There it is. Wow, that was fantastic. Spontaneous. That's always the best. Kathy, you've got one more clip that we want to show folks of, and really it highlights Stacey's work and what she does with drones. But we'll watch that and then we'll come back and jump into our conversation. Yep. Kathy's working on it. We'll get to it in a minute. So thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate that. Danny, thanks for joining us. You let me know when you're ready to go. There it is. Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kathy. Stacey, that was fantastic video. And I've got a drone. Someone gifted me a drone. It's a smaller one, but what amazed me about the footage that you took there was the stability. It was very little drift, and it just was locked in. That's quite amazing. You're quite a skilled pilot.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We got lucky, even though it was below freezing out there. So that's why the Patriots were huddled in groups. It was only 5 miles. Well, actually 5 knots was what the wind was. So most drones can handle that. Mine's kind of a middle of the road, but I brought another drone just in case that can actually handle winds up to 30 miles per hour and be steady as a rock. But I didn't have to launch her. I got to use the one I'm more familiar with that you saw. So we got lucky on that one.
Yes. So friends, crazycatdrones.com, crazycatdrones.com. If you are interested in learning how to fly drones, Stacey would be a good person to contact. Now, one of the things that most people don't know, Stacey, is that in order to do what you do, you have to be licensed. There's a process that you have to go through, isn't there?
Yes. So it used to be everybody just got a drone off the shelf and you could fly anywhere. And then there was a lot of people flying drones in areas that were dangerous. And so the FAA, which controls all airspace, so, it tells what plane, what chopper, where they can land and when they can take off. And, we need it because there's no stop signs, there's no lanes up there. And I think what the FAA realized is during 2020 and the lockdown, there's a lot of companies that are actually doing drone deliveries. So now we've got Amazon delivering, Walmart can deliver, Starbucks already tested it. So now you got even a busier sky, and you got people that don't know the rules. And there was a guy that was out there flying with me, and I could tell he wasn't FAA because he flew his drone across the freeway. And we're never allowed to go over a moving vehicle, because if we lose link with the drone, it'll drop out of the sky and then it hits a car at 80 miles an hour. So I knew he wasn't licensed. That luckily he didn't get into, didn't do anything incredibly stupid, but I was a little upset
Yeah.
because it's all about safety, and I don't want to get a bad name because, people aren't following the rules. But the FAA is going to make, if you're a recreationalist, you can only fly in certain areas like city parks that have designated drone areas and remote airplane areas. And then if you want to fly in other areas, you have to be FAA. And we will all have to have a remote ID on our drone, which they just would track it. Not like they're spying on you, but if something happened and my drone did what's called a flyaway, where it just goes out of control and flies and crashes into something, they can track where that drone is and who's holding the controller. So then I can file the report. I may get fined if it was my fault. They may say no big deal. But some people are a little upset, but I think it's good because I want to be safe out there.
Sure. And I noticed on your website, Stacey, again, friends, crazycatdrones.com, I noticed that you offer those FAA classes that you'll teach people and run them through so that they can actually sit for the test. And I'm sure they'll pass if they take those courses from you.
Well, I've been doing some tutoring. So, I went through a company that was giving it free to veterans and active duty. And it was 1 hour a week on Saturdays. And that was just like the lesson. But you had to be pretty disciplined to be reading that stuff. I've got a couple master's degrees, so I understand how to study. But a lot of people didn't. And they thought they could just come for 1 hour a week and learn all about airspace, charts, navigation. It was a lot. So when I got my license, I went ahead and did study guides for all of it and did PowerPoint projects. And I started tutoring some people online. So mine's a little bit more than an hour a week. And in the future, my daughter, Lindsay, who did the editing on that video, by the way. So all that fancy editing is by Lindsay. She's my lead pilot and editor. She and I want to actually get the drone zone where we would be teaching, but we'd also be teaching you to fly, because a drone pilot, you don't have to test on that skill. I literally became a drone pilot before I owned a drone. All you have to do is pass the test. Whereas other pilots, you have to have an instructor pilot, you got to fly so many hours, and then you have to be tested because there's people in those planes. But with us, we don't have any people. So I learned all those skills on my own. And we thought, there's a lot of skills. We keep pushing and learning new things. So we thought maybe having it in Texas, where people could come. We're in Copper's Cove, right outside of Fort Hood. People could come and actually learn the skill sets flying drones, and we could help them with that as well as teaching them. That's something we want to do in the future.
Yes, absolutely. And just for our listeners' information, Kathy and I met Stacey in St. Louis last year. I believe it was just last year at Bard's Fest. And we happened to be down in the hotel lobby on our way to the conference. And you were there, and you gave us a card. But that's very interesting, because a good friend of ours, David Paxton, is also a drone pilot. He is very versed in drones. And I thought, well, that's very interesting. So we made arrangements to have him. We finally got this worked out for you to come and join. So what were your observations, Stacey? You were with the convoy. You saw what was happening. You saw the Patriots on the side of the road with their flags and so on. Thank you for that, Danny. So Danny says it was August of 2021.
It
So
was.
so thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to, my my memory, I'm going back now, and Kathy and I do so many conference. Well, we haven't in the last, well, since Bard's Fest. I think we did no, we had one since then, didn't we, dear? So, but anyway, the point is, sometimes it's hard to remember the dates on all of these things. So yeah, it was August 2021, Bard's Fest. We met, and you reached out, and actually Danny helped with that, I believe.
Mhm.
Danny helped with that. So thank you, Danny, for that. And decided to have you on. So what were your observations, Stacey, about first of all the convoy, but the patriots that were there along the routes, just to greet them and encourage them, and the conversations that you heard or were engaged in? What was the atmosphere like, and what was the attitude of the people, generally speaking, that you spoke with?
Oh, the people were so excited. And, it was sub-freezing temperatures. So to see that many people out there, I mean, it was the middle of the day, 4 o'clock, but it was seriously clear and cold. And we were out there and there was a 2 hour delay. So, I'm like, I'm just going to go sit in my truck and get warm, And so that's what we did. And we waited another 2 hours until Danny and my team was able to get us intel that they were headed our way. So then I knocking on car windows going, they're coming, they're coming. And we all ran out there again. So some of the patriots, they had more like on the bridge because there was no delay, so some of the footage you see, it shows thousands on the bridge. Well, we probably had like 500, but when you have to wait another 2 to 3 hours, that was kind of difficult. But they were there, they wanted to be there. And while we were there, I met a gentleman, and he was a trucker who had gotten injured. And so he was not able to drive because he injured his foot. But he was there in his car, and he was supporting his fellow truckers. So I got like a 16-second soundbite from him. Truckers are very shy. They are very camera shy. And even at the event in the evening when they rallied for the night, nobody wanted to do an interview. They just kind of went, it says on the side of our big rigs what we want. We want, no more mandate on the vaccine. We want, government to kind of leave us alone. We want our civil liberties back, say no to the vaccine. Those are kind of our main points. And we don't need to scream and yell in microphones or do interviews. It's there. And it just reminded me that they're a strong, quiet presence. Like I could totally see them. They just pull up to DC and draw a line in the sand and just say, we're not going to scream and yell, but we're done. This is it. We want you to know what's going on. So the Patriots were great. They really, really were. They brought their kids. I was handing out our patches. We were handing out cards. The kids wanted to do, like play with the drones. And I kept going, no, this is a real aircraft. We don't play with these, but you see everybody waves at the drone. They all love to wave at the drone. So we are finishing up another video of the truckers. When they left the next morning, they were all waving at the drone too. So it's kind of cool footage on that. And I'll get that to you when I can.
Okay. Yeah. Look forward to seeing that. One of the things that I'm impressed about with the trucker convoys, and there are many segments of it, and they are all moving toward the Capitol, is that this is, in my view, this is the epitome of what America is all about. Peaceful protests. They are not looking for violence. Now, my suspicion, and this is based on what happened a couple of years ago and seems to happen every time patriots and freedom-loving Americans come together to make a statement peacefully, that there are always folks who infiltrate and end up becoming bad actors intentionally to discredit that group or that movement. What are your concerns, if any, that might happen this time?
Well, I know one of the main people that planned this. His name is Joshua Yoder, And he did the U.S. Freedom Flyers. He's a pilot, a commercial pilot. And so when the pilot said, we're not doing this with the mandate and the shot, and they all walked away, he was part of that lawsuit. And now he's a big planner on this. So if anybody wants true information about what's going on, you need to go to thepeoplesconvoy.org. That is the only one that is truly from this convoy. There are a lot of other copycats out there, like .com, and they're putting out false intel, kind of like what you were saying. And so they know about it. They're aware of that. But all the information you need, if you want to donate, you go to that site, thepeoplesconvoy.org, and it goes directly into a bank account. So you don't have to worry about like the sketchiness of PayPal sometimes, or some of these others like GoFundMe that get hacked or get frozen. And that account is overseen by a group of bankers and attorneys, and they are 100% transparent, because I was in Elk City, Oklahoma, and they were in Glen Rio, Texas the day before, and they filled up like all of the truckers. It was over $100,000 to fill up all of their tanks to keep them rolling. And I think they have about 800,000 now that they've raised. At the rally that night, they said they were using all the money to get the truckers to DC. And then, because that's the main point, and then if there was money left over, all the people in the cars and the vans and the SUVs that are part of this, they would split that money evenly and get it out to them to help supplement the costs of it. But right now, they just needed to get the truckers there. And the Patriots are bringing so much stuff like water and food. And oh my gosh, they had a flatbed trailer with all of these little bags that were decorated by children. And it would be like little pictures of a truck, and they'd be like, honk, honk, hi, thank you for doing it. It was so adorable. But there's so many in each spot that now 4 of the trucks in the convoy are completely full of supplies. Wow. And they don't even need that much, because they get to the next spot and there's just tons, like food trucks came out and truckers ate for free, and pallets of water. And so now Joshua is like, we're going to have to find some charities and soup kitchens and homeless places to start dumping, giving what people gave us, because we can't keep, filling our trucks up with this, but we appreciate it. So that should answer how the Patriots are reacting.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Stacey. So thepeoplesconvoy.org. Thank you, Kathy, for putting that up there. And I want to give a shout out here in the Lima area to Lori. She is organizing the same thing here in Lima, taking donations and collections of items to pass along to these truckers. So thank you, Lori, for doing that. So thepeoplesconvoy.org. Thank you very much for that update. So one of the things that we had talked about, it was a phone conversation maybe a month ago now, Stacey, that really piqued my curiosity. And I had heard about the technology, but I didn't pay a lot of attention to it at the time. I heard a little snippet about it, and then you brought it up and started describing it in detail. And it actually was in place at Bard's Fest. And so you actually experienced this. And I thought, wow, the way that, and this is typical, the way that they presented the use of this technology. It's a very good thing. And we can use it for the benefit of businesses and communities. And it's like, no, actually, I think this is problematic. And so what I'm talking about here, friends, I'll quit being deliberately evasive. I'm talking about geofencing. So those of you who have joined me, drop in the chat function. Well, you're on YouTube or Gatekeepers Online or Facebook. Have you ever heard of geofencing? Geofencing. Just drop it in the comments section if you have or haven't, doesn't matter. But hang around, because Stacey's going to tell you exactly what that is, and then we're going to maybe try to flesh this out a little bit and understand some of the implications. So you told me about geofencing, Stacey, and you ran into it at Bard's Fest of all places. So first of all, what is geofencing and how did you experience that in St. Louis?
Okay, so geofencing is geo coordinates, right? So they're physical coordinates that could be around a building, they could be around an airport. There's geofencing around our White House, obviously. And what it is it puts up an electronic barrier so that certain things will either be triggered to happen or it will keep certain things from happening. So, like if we looked at the White House, obviously that means any drone or airplane that tries to go in that airspace will not be allowed in. It just cuts all of the electronics out. And that's what happened to me at Bard's Fest. I flew into St. Louis and I was at Bard's Fest. I'm trying to do my test flights and I can't get the drone to launch. And it wouldn't launch because it was geofenced because I was within 5 miles of the airport. Well, what the drone didn't know is that I had already spoken to the FAA and I already had received authorization to fly. So once I figured that out, I was able to just unlock the geofence and I was allowed to fly there. But it does get more complicated. And that's what Pastor Mike was talking about. It's sold to us as far as convenience. So if you think about, let's say you're doing your errands on Saturday and you're just driving along and you pass the Walmart. Now, you weren't going to stop at Walmart, but as you breach this electronic fence that you don't even see, you can't feel it, but it is there. When you breach that, the app on your phone for Walmart will send you a message. And it might say 25 cents off on a gallon of gasoline. And so then that encourages you, or in my opinion, manipulates your emotions and gets you to stop and get the gasoline at Walmart. And that was all marketing. So they can do that. They can also, they can write the coordinates of the geofence into the app that you download on your phones, but it doesn't necessarily have to be around their business. They can actually write the coordinates for their competitors' business. And that's called geoconquesting, which the name right there should give it away. So if, let's say I like Starbucks and I like the coffee bean, right? But I'm closer to the coffee bean. So I'm going to swing by there, grab my coffee because I got to get to work. When I breach those geo coordinates of that geo fence at the coffee bean, Starbucks sends me a message trying to lure me back to, hey, free coffee from Starbucks. Well, I'm going to be like, yeah, I'll be late to work. No problem, And so it's pulling customers away. Now you may think, okay, business is business. It's never been a nice game, right? They've always been, trying to get as many customers any way they can. But when I was at the airport, when I flew in, I wanted to get an Uber because I wasn't going to rent a car. So I had the app on my phone. I'm like, I've done it once, the credit card's attached. I think I can figure this out. So I try and get through the Uber app and I get to page 2 and it won't get to the part where you pay for it, or at least put your credit card stuff in there. And so then I saw a young lady who was in her 20s. I asked her if she'd help me and she's flying on my phone, going through it, and she can't go through it either. So I finally just took a taxi. Well, when I started doing research about geofencing, this is what happened. The Taxi Drivers Union made a contract with the St. Louis airport that they would be the only provider of those services. So because I was inside the geofence that they put up around their airport, I was not allowed to use my Uber or Lyft apps to contact anybody else to come give me a ride. I was now forced to use the only option available, which was their taxi cab. So that really got me fired up. It's one thing if it's marketing and they're like, oh, we're better than these guys, we're stealing you away. Okay, whatever. I can make my choice. But in this instance, I did not get my freedom of choice. And I think our country was built on that, was built on competitiveness, different markets. That's what drives our ingenuity to come up with new and better ways of doing things. And here it's like, nope, you can't use any of these other companies because we have a big lobby. we have a big union and we're going to make big contracts with the airports. So that one was a little bit tough for me.
Yes, yes, no doubt. And so I did a quick search, Stacey, today in preparation for our conversation. And I had never thought of geofencing in this context, but once I stumbled upon this link and started reading, I said, well, of course of course they're going to do this. Why would we think they wouldn't? And what I found today was that in a recent court case, where Roundup, Monsanto, was being taken to court over Roundup and its toxicity and the dangers inherent in it. Well, guess what Monsanto did? Monsanto bought the area in that community, a wide swath that just happened to include the courthouse where the trial was going on. They geofenced this entire area and they bombarded it. If anybody did a search on Roundup or Monsanto, the only information they would get would be about what a wonderful product it was, how safe it was, and all of these things that clearly was not a coincidence and was meant to sway public opinion.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing that people inevitably will utilize to gain control and power. And I agree with your statement. Business is business and anything goes. That's pretty much the way it is with business ethics today, because I'm not sure those two words even go together anymore. Business is business. All is fair in love and war, as the saying goes. However, this has gone beyond just business. This is outright manipulation and brainwashing, deception, propaganda, isn't it?
I think so, because if we were just looking at the marketing geofencing, that is something that's written into the app that's on your smartphone. Okay. So if you like Walmart and you download the Walmart app to help you get the bigger, better deal, okay, that's on you. You gave permission to be geofenced and to get that marketing material and discounts or whatever when you downloaded the app. And it will work whether you're open and using it or whether it's just running in the background, just sitting on your phone. But what you're talking about is kind of like what was at the airport, and the fact that now they are controlling the information flow, which is what the media has been doing. I mean, if you saw in my video of the drone footage, there was that van that said the media is the virus.
Yes.
And it is. And Monsanto, they're just blocking the narrative and the truth so that only their version of it, which is spun, will get out. And I don't think that's all that different than the mainstream media now, which is why we're all on the alternative medias. But it is very, very sad to see that people are still believing it. You know, in that court case, they didn't even have to pull the product. Roundup is still out there. They didn't even have to change the formula. They just spent billions of dollars buying off the people in a settlement. Those people died of cancer.
Yeah.
You know, and so they just bought them off. Everybody's silent. You sign a non-disclosure agreement when you get your money, and then they kept the product there. So that's why I wanted to get out to all the pastors and everybody I knew. You guys have to be smarter than this. You have to, you don't need those apps. Like, seriously, you have been shopping way before smartphones came along. You know how to shop, and you know how to order your drinks. Like when you do it with the app at Starbucks, I'm like, well, yeah, it's efficient, but come on, it's the ambiance of the restaurant, you know, of the little cafe, and you stand in line, you talk to people again. Imagine that. And you get to order like all these crazy drinks, you know, and they make it for you. And then you can sit out at the bistro tables and enjoy nature and the weather and, you know, God, and, you know, and now it's like, oh no, I'm going to do it with my app, pay with my app, go through the drive-thru, grab my coffee and go. And I'm like, you're missing the whole point. But all that stuff with the app only works because it's geofenced. So that's how like Starbucks knows which one you're going to, because they have so many Starbucks. I could order on my phone a coffee, but not go to the one closest to me. I go and pick it up at the one closest to my work. And so they have to geofence that so that the one closest to me is not keeping my drink there and I never show up.
That's right.
So, but yeah, it is very, very manipulative. And just to let you guys know, I mean, if you have things like Alexa, Siri, I mean, those guys, hey, Google, they're listening to you constantly 24/7 because they have to hear you say, hey, Google, and then Google activates. So that means Google was listening to you before it activated, right? And the same thing with Alexa and Siri. But there's other things too, like I found it's called the Nest thermostat, and it's for smart houses, and now they have smart refrigerators that tell you when something's expiring, and it's getting ridiculous. I would say, don't activate those apps. You can read when the milk's expired. Trust me, when you pop that lid, you'll know if the milk is bad. Okay, you don't need a smart refrigerator to do that. But the Nest thermostat, they geofence your house. So when you download the app and you leave, if I didn't turn the heat down, then it will turn it down for me automatically so that it's efficient and saving me money while I'm at work. And then when I come back, it'll immediately, bump it up so it's nice and toasty when I come in, and vice versa, for the summertime. But the only way it works is because your house is the geofence. So when I leave my house and I drive in my car and I'm out of my driveway, that's when the thermostat goes, oh, she's gone. She forgot to change the temperature. We'll do it for her. So now you start thinking about Klaus Schwab, and the Economic Forum, the summit, where he said, we would all be controlled through borders. And so I go, what is a border? What is a geofence? Is a geofence a border? So now I'm starting to see more and more control like you're seeing.
Yes, amen. So the thing that comes to my mind, Stacey, when you're describing all this is where is that information being fed to that I'm not home? Because it's being relayed someplace, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, here we go. There's three different types of geofences. Okay. And it's based on the area. All right. So let's say I'm in a Costco or a Walmart, something that's really, really big, or even a big department store that would have, the men's department, the women's department, the children, so different little areas in this one big store. What they'll do is they'll geofence each little area with what's called a beacon. And a beacon, it just looks like this little thing on the wall. I mean, you would think maybe it was like a camera or like a security camera or maybe a thermostat. You wouldn't really know what it is. But what it does is it is activated by your Bluetooth, which is your phone. So now when I go to the women's and it says, hey, this suit is on sale for $199, it's because it knew I breached that geofence and I went into the women's department. So now they're going to try and market and try and get me to buy something. Or let's say I went to like the sporting goods area like 3 times and I never bought anything. Well, it keeps track of that via your phone, right? Because you're a client and it's tracking your purchases. It's going to say, hey, you get 50% off on anything in the sporting goods area. Well, how did it know I was in that area? It was a beacon. All right, so that's probably about 5 to 10 meters. Then there is called native positioning, and that's a little bit bigger. So that could be like around the building, around the restaurant, whether it's yours or the other person. One thing to note is you don't have to own the building, the space around it, the property, or the airspace. Nobody's controlling this. So within 30 minutes, I can watch a YouTube video on how to write the code for geofencing into an app. There's actual software where it will do it for you. And as long as you have an app that people want to download on their phones, then it'll work. So like, if I had the Stacey app, probably nobody's going to download it. So what's the point of geofencing? But the bigger companies like Walmart, Starbucks, things like that, everybody's got those apps. And so the The native positioning is for just a bigger area. So as I said with the coffee bean, as I walk towards that, I breach that fence, and then Starbucks tries to lure me back. Now the really big one, so the native positioning works because your cell phone towers. Yay. Aren't there cell phone towers everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on the 5G thing. Okay. But so your phone is always pinging, it's sending out a ping to all of the cell phone towers. So they know where you are. So you get service. That's what they say. You get service. All right.
Mm-hmm.
If the cell phone tower picks up a ping from a phone it doesn't recognize through the database, what it does is it contacts the satellite. All right. That's global positioning satellites, right? It contacts the satellite. The satellite gives the exact coordinates, latitude and longitude of your phone. Well, you're holding the phone, so now it knows where you are. Then that information from the satellite with that, location goes to the cell phone tower, and the cell phone tower gives it to your provider. So now Verizon knows that I have a new phone and where I'm at. So now you're on the grid. So now you're geofenced.
Yes.
So that's kind of how that all works. Now the satellites can do a very, very large area, like 50,000, kilometers, right? I mean, satellites are big, but satellites go in an orbit, right? So there's a certain time frame they'll be over where you're at, and then they move and they'll be over a different part of our world, right? Yes. So now what they're doing in the name of coverage is Elon Musk has been putting up a ton of satellites. And if you look at the Starlink satellite system, it's a net. It's a complete net of satellites over us. And the way that works is they're hooked together like cars on a train. So as this one starts to rotate out of the area, my information jumps to the next one that's coming in to that area. So now they constantly have you everywhere. And I started thinking, that's a lot of satellites up there. And are they keeping something out? Or are they keeping us in? Or why do we have to have that? So that's kind of how that all works.
Yeah. So the question that I'm sure people that have joined us today are asking, and by the way, folks, I am talking with Stacey Stine. She is the founder and president of Crazy Cat Drones, crazycatdrones.com. Thank you, Kathy. You can go out there and find out what Stacey's doing and some fantastic footage that she's captured on her drones. And if you're interested in those FAA drone pilot licensing courses, then she would be happy to help you with that. One of the things that, listening to your explanation of how things are going today, and we really are, we don't have to have the closed circuit TVs at our intersections. Some cities do, London, for example, but I'm talking about America. There are some cities that have these cameras everywhere. Most of America does not, but that doesn't mean that we're not being surveilled, friends. Stacey's point is that they know pretty much where the vast majority of Americans are at any given moment of the day. So my question, what comes to mind for me, Stacey, is how long is it going to be? And I know this is shades of the Minority Report, and let's see, what was the other one I had in mind here as I was, because Hollywood, folks, what Hollywood does. Hollywood signals what the dark side is already doing. They're just giving you a hint, a little teaser, a little tantalizing bit of information. How long? Oh, I know what it was. It reminded me of an episode of Monk. If you remember that TV series, probably, I don't know, 20 years ago, they had an episode there where the GPS system, and this was when GPS was brand new, and only the more expensive makes and models of cars had an inbuilt GPS. And this GPS in this vehicle was actually manipulated so that it took its driver and passenger to a place where a crime was committed. They thought they were going one place, but the data had actually been manipulated to bring them where a killer was waiting. So my point is this: how long before they use this technology that we've been discussing here, that you very, very well explained, how long before they begin to put people in places where they're really not there, and then accuse them of things that they didn't do? But they've got the satellite evidence. We've got the tracking here. The GPS says this, and your phone record says this. How long before something like that happens?
I think they're already doing it. They've always been doing it. And the big issue is, just because we have the technology doesn't mean we should be using the technology. Yeah. You know, they keep standing on the shoulders of each other, going farther and farther, like augmented reality. And, you know, now you wear these goggles. Like, I can wear goggles and fly the drone like I'm playing a game, right? But that's a game. But the drone's out there in the real world, you know, so that's why the FAA says we're not doing that. You need to watch your drone. You need to be a real pilot, right? But I mean, that's what they're going to. And they've already done things like AI. AI is just a computer program that's telling the drone what to do, you know, and I'm just using drones because I know drones. But in Phoenix, Amazon bought the airspace corridor over Phoenix. And the airspace corridor is like a tunnel of air space where like jets can fly. And it was for the military. So like the F-35s out of Luke, which is in Phoenix, they would go whipping on over to Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, right? And so they would buy the airspace, and you can't go near it. You can't, as a pilot, you can't go over it, under it. You got to like literally go around that city, you know? And they did that because they wanted to, you know, go Mach 4 or 5 or whatever they fly at. You know, they could just go very quickly and not worry about the rest of that. So, you know, AI is only as smart as AI. And in my business, when it gets to the delivery of drones, yeah, it's a computer game. I'm watching the drone fly, but I have to be the pilot to say, oh, you didn't see that bird strike? Like, if they didn't program that into the AI, the drone doesn't know to avoid a bird. It just knows to fly this direction. So they still need some real pilots. But I think they've been doing things like that, you know, with the cars, that everything's automated. People don't even know you can put a key in a car anymore and start it. Okay, what happens when the grid goes down, you guys? Mm-hmm. How are you going to drive? You don't have a carbureted car. You have an electronic car, and now there's no electronics because they geofenced you. Because, you know, on the social credit score, you said something you shouldn't say. You criticized the government. You criticized President Biden. You criticized the mainstream media. So no car for you today. Sorry, we're just going to geofence it. Yeah. That they could do like right now. Yeah. They could do that now.
Well, and we've seen that already in Canada, haven't we?
We have. Luckily, there's still the rest of the world, you know, that I think put a lot of pressure on Canada, you know, like when they froze the bank accounts and things like that. And so Trudeau's like, okay, well, I'm not doing it, but the bankers will do it. So he kind of shoved it off on them. And they, as private companies, decided to do that. But we're up against a lot, you guys. You know, I mean, we're up against the technologies. So what I would recommend is, if you don't have to have all these apps on your phones, don't have them. Delete them. I even have 2 different tutorials I'll give to Pastor Mike that show you how to delete these apps off of an iPhone. And then my daughter did it off of an Android, because luckily we have both phones. But get rid of them. You don't need to have them tracking you. You don't need to have them listening to you. You can check your email when you get home. I mean, there was a time we didn't have email. There was a time when the phone was hooked to the wall and you had to run across the entire house to get to it before the 3rd ring. You know, maybe sometimes going backwards in time is a little bit better. And I kind of correlate it to spiritual warfare, in the fact that, you know, I hear people go, oh, I've got the full armor of God and I'm going to take on the enemy. And I'm thinking, did you check to see if you have any chinks in that armor? Because every app that you have is a chink in the armor. And when they say like the mark of the beast in your hand, Oh, you don't need a microchip. It's in your phone and you're holding your phone constantly. That could be the mark. We don't know, and we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I'm just kind of saying, if you can get rid of some of these things, don't hook up to the smart refrigerator. You don't have to download the app to learn how to use your refrigerator, and you don't have to download the app for the thermostat. You can go move it yourself. It's okay. And get rid of some of these apps. And I even bought a Faraday bag, which is a special bag that you can put your phone in. So if I'm traveling and I don't really want everybody in the world to know where I'm going, I'll put my phone in that bag. And then, when I'm done doing what I'm doing, I take it out. And then all of a sudden it connects with the internet. It's like, all of the phone messages and emails come in. But it's kind of nice to think that at least I don't have to be tracked all the time. So it's just some things to kind of think about, because we're just letting them do it.
Yeah, that is so true. Very wise words, Stacey. Very wise words. I appreciate that. We often talk about coming out of Babylon. We see what's happening in the world today. And listen, the government of the United States, they're just marching to the same Pied Piper as governments of every other nation. It's just that we have this. Well, it's really a difficult thing for total dominance, and it's called the Constitution. And the other thing is that Americans, more than any other nationality in the world, we are armed to the teeth. Mm-hmm. So those two things are working against those that would like to canonize us, to do what they did in Canada here to America. It's not going to be that easy, but they are trying. They are still trying to do that to us. So I just want to play. We've got just a couple of minutes left, Stacey, and again, friends, I am talking to Stacey Stine, crazycatdrones.com. If you're interested in learning about drones, Stacey's your person. Go check out her website. Is there a place to contact you there? Yep, there is.
So there is. You can contact us. It will be Stacey at crazycatdrones.com. It'll go to my encrypted email. But hit the site if you can, because I did updates throughout the entire event. So at 4 a.m, I'm like half asleep trying to get on the road, and all the people that helped me. I had a huge team from Charlie at We Patriot that was, telling me the map and where the truckers were, to Danny, who was relaying all that intel. And then my daughter, as soon as I took the video, she would grab it, edit it. So there's just a lot of different ones there. There's about 4 or 5 different videos there of what went on in that 24-hour period. So it was kind of fun to do if you wanted to see the progression of it all.
Yes, absolutely. So friends, if you would like to connect with Tracy, do that through the contact form at crazycatdrones.com. If you'd like to make a donation or support what she's doing, there's a way that you can do that too. And I think that is through...
We have both of them. So if you want to do PayPal, you're more than welcome to do that. We also have a Give, Send, Go, because that's the Christian one. And if you can't donate on the Give, Send, Go, at least you can do prayers. So it's either a prayer request, that you're praying for us, which we always appreciate. Or if you have a request, then as a good Christian, I will always be praying for that as well.
Yes, absolutely. So Tracy, Stacey, I'm sorry. Before we go, I'd like your thoughts and opinions on what is the best way forward for us as Christians, as Americans, as patriots. What is the best way forward? Is it to continue to peacefully protest? Is it to get together and go to locations? Is it to start where we live, in the cities and the counties in which we live? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when I was a youth minister, I remember teaching the children, the youth. I had a bucket and I dropped a pebble in it. And of course, it made the concentric circles, right? The waves as it got bigger and bigger. And I kind of taught them, we're not going to go save all the people in Africa yet. Let's work on us first. So I still believe that. You know, you need to be right with God. There's lots of us that can help lead you to the Lord. If you have not accepted Jesus Christ, that's the way. It's Christ through the Father. So that's first, but then you might need a mentor. We got to help you learn the word and understand the word and get in discipline to prayer all the time. It's tough. If thank goodness Danny was praying for me during this mission, because I was overwhelmed. I was busy. And I should have taken more time. But thank goodness she was being my prayer warrior on my behalf. And there's lots of us that can help people out too. And then you got to get your family in order. You know, let's work on the family and the house. You could do a Patriot garden, get extra food in case. I saw those truckers, and I'm telling you, if they wanted to shut down the supply lines, 3 days and we're done. In a week, there's nothing on the grocery shelves. Well, how long is your stuff in your cabinets going to last? Another week? And then what? You know, you guys got to think about that. There's nothing wrong with being prepared, you know, so get your food, get your water, get your energy, get your gardens going if you can. I also am real big about community. I know everybody on my street, and I always joke and go, you know, if the zombie apocalypse comes, everyone's going to come to me. Because I got the food, I make my own medicine, I've got the guns, you know, I'm an expert shot. I'm like, you know, but you've got to know your people. And all of my friends were like, nobody's coming down this street. If it gets to that, we've got it, you know. So, and you just keep branching out from there, whether it's the schools. I volunteered to tutor people's kids if they needed help in homeschooling to get them out of this indoctrination camp. And I said, look, I'll do it for free, but if I run out of food, you just feed me, okay? And they're like, that's what Christians do.
Amen.
Oh.
Amen. Amen. Very, very good. Thank you, Stacey. And thank you for joining me today, friends. crazycatdrones.com is the website. Stacey Stine, I really appreciate you, your heart, your love for the Lord, and your love for America. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Amen. That's all we've got for you today, friends. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing this show on your platforms. And remember, renewing our mind is not an option. Go serve your King.